Hey, guys, this episode is brought to you by TeePublic. You guys know TeePublic. I've been with TeePublic forever, since the Schmodown days, since the big thing launched. If you have a Sith Council shirt, if you have any of our shirts, you got them from TeePublic. From over the years, we've been working with TeePublic. When I went out on my own, they were one of the first calls that I made. So not only can you get all of the branded merch from this show, t-shirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, all that, when you are on the site, do a search. You're going to discover something that you like, especially in this space, man. An artist uploads new work to the TeePublic marketplace every 5 seconds. Because of the thousands of global artists that populate the marketplace, you're going to find designs you won't find at a big box store, especially if your interests are super niche. Doesn't matter what you're into, you can find it on TeePublic. You want a graphic tee of a cat riding a unicorn? Check. A t-shirt with your favorite movie quote? Got it. You want merch for the big thing? Hey, that's what you want, obviously. I've been using TeePublic forever. If you guys know me from back in the day, I've been talking about them that long. So it was obvious that I was going to be using them again, and I'm so glad that I did. So many of you guys, when I see you at some of the events, you're wearing the big thing shirts, and it all comes from TeePublic. And browse around on my link. It's going to be in the iCard right there. It's going to be in the description right there. Browse around. You will find stuff that you like. So I'm happy that they're on the show. They're sponsoring the show now. TeePublic, everybody. Check them out. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to The Big Thing with me, Kristian Harloff. Thank you for joining me here today, whether you're joining me on the YouTubes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. That's where we're at. That's what we're doing. That's what we do for the week, and we're doing it here with you. So thank you guys for joining me today. Deadpool, still filming. They said it's around half, not still filming, but they said they have around 50% of it filmed so far. So let's just say that. Still coming out at the scheduled date. Speaking of Deadpool, Shawn Levy, who directed it, is rumored, one of the many directors rumored to be directing Secret Wars. So the question is, who will direct Secret Wars? Will it be Levy? Will it be Sam Raimi? Will it be Ryan Coogler? Will it be the new shiny director on the block? And obviously not a new director, but Alfonso Cuaron is the latest in the rumor mill. Speaking of rumor mill, Beetlejuice 2 has been in the rumor mill since, 2014. I remember back when we ran schmozno.com, we broke that story. Google it, that they were going to be doing a Beetlejuice 2. And here we go, almost 10 years later, and they're finally doing it. And that's 99% done, they say so far. David Zazlav, he's not popular. Well, he is saying things like, we want to do more Lord of the Rings. We want to do more Harry Potter. Well, Zaslav, I think you want to do more of anything right now. So put a deal together, get your S together, and yeah, we'll talk about the no duh that he wants to do Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. There's more. There's box office. There's all that. And the other thing I was going to mention to you guys, if you didn't already see it, I just did a One Piece watch along for part 1. Part 2 is actually on the channel right now. I released that before I released this. And I'm going to do the whole series. People chimed in. It was very, very, very nice people who had chimed in. So we're going to do that. But I also have another announcement that we'll do. But before we even do any of that, hit that button, man. We're at 91,000. We're approaching 92 pretty quick. I think we'll hit 92 this week. And I think we can hit 100. If you guys, if you join us for the first time, you help us out, that works out. So let's do it. Let's get to the big thing. It's me. It's you. Cool. Here we go. What's going on, one and all? Again, happy Monday. Hope you guys had a great weekend. What did you do this weekend? So different as far as weather. I'm in a fantasy pool, or I guess it's the pool with my family, I should say. Made it through week 1 in the footballs. Chose the Commanders. It's basically got to pick a team to win every week. And then once a team loses, you can't pick them once, you pick them once. And once you lose, you're out. Well, I didn't lose. And the Commanders almost lost. And thank God I didn't bet on the Giants. I could hit you in the legs with a baseball bat. You could hit me in the head with a crowbar. And we could play better than the Giants played yesterday. Just the two of us. We could at least score a point. But that did not happen in a 49-0 beatdown, slapdown, nuts across the face from the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not too proud to say that they destroyed us. It looked like Pee Wee football. Nonetheless, that's not why we're here. I was talking about the One Piece reaction I did. And I'd done a trailer reaction to that show, and I was like, I don't know. I'm going to, this looks like something my daughter would watch. It looks fun. Whatever, I'm going to check it out. And then I got people telling me, man, you're going to like this show. I'm telling you. You should look at it. You should check it out. And then it's like everywhere I go, you see One Piece, One Piece, One Piece. So I'll try the first one. You know what I'll do? I'll react to the first one. And if enough people watch it, people check it out, then I'll do it again. But like, as I had done reaction stuff. I had done House of the Dragon, and one of them did okay. The rest of them did fine. I did the Tales of the Jedi. People liked them that were watching them. People who watched them liked them. I didn't really get a lot of criticisms on them as far as people who were watching them. It's just there were some people who were watching them. And I also realized that someone said this too. You got to do more of them because your channel is not really known for watching the reactions. So at first you're going to get some people kind of not picking up that that's what you're doing. So you got to do it consistently. And they're absolutely right. So I'm going to try this One Piece series. I did the first one. I said I needed it to do like 20,000, and it did close to it. But I'm not holding to that the whole way through because of the interaction. Someone mentioned this in the comments too. There were so many comments that should outweigh the 20, whether it hit it or not. And I agree, because there was a lot of interaction. There's a lot of people, and there's really a nice fandom that I haven't seen in a while. And it was one of these things like, you know, because there are a lot of places that if you're watching something new, or a lot of fandoms, if you're watching something new, they're, what's the word? Oh, dicks. Yeah, that's the word. And this wasn't the case. I can't even count how many people were like, we like the fact that you've never seen it before. We like that you're brand new to it. We welcome people that we want to see people is discovering this for the first time in this world this time. I saw that. I mean, you go through the comments, that's one of the most popular comments that I'd seen, and it was like, made me feel good every time. And people have also said this through the duration of my career on doing this, right? It's like, and I think I've said this to other people too, and I think that it's very true. The way that the internet works, you can go through comments, and 1,000 of them can be positive, and 4 of them can be negative. And those 4 can really ruin your day, and you take that as if that's what it is. And it's not. It really isn't. And I followed that example that people, or that advice that people had been giving me for years, and that I'd given to other people this weekend. I saw so many comments, so many positive comments during One Piece, so many. And I did a clip out, and there was one, and I'm not, and I almost called the name. I'm not going to even do that. Someone who maybe even having a bad day, someone who knows, just is confrontational. I don't know, but for whatever reason, doesn't like me. Major, like it wasn't just like a couple lines, like paragraphs, 2 paragraphs on my Instagram to go over this stuff, and like just hammering me. And instead of responding or anything to, I just blocked them from it. And I said, I'm not going to let that bother or ruin my day. I'm going to go. And I went to the comments on the YouTube reaction that I did, and I just read positivity, positivity, positivity. I wrote some of the videos that we did last week, positive, positive, positive. And you guys are right. I was right inside of telling other people, focus on the positive, and not just on the internet, but it's just in general. Focus on the positive, and it just outweighs it so much, and it can really, really change your day. And I don't mean to be preachy today, but it just really has changed me over the last couple of months, where, you know, you just look at things differently, where you can focus in on something that could make you miserable, but just don't go down that street. Walk down a different street. I did that this weekend, and I was so glad that I did, because I was like, in the morning, there were other times in my life that comment probably would have ruined my entire day. But I was like, nah, I don't have any animosity towards this person whatsoever. I don't really necessarily want them in my life still, so I'm going to block them from the page and let them do whatever they want to do, and that's fine. But I'm telling you, scrolled through, went through the One Piece stuff, and I was in such a good mood afterwards. And I was looking at some of the other stuff people were laughing at, and even on a flip side to that, we did the reaction to this Gary Busey video that the guy's out of his mind, right? And he wrongfully hits this woman in a car, and then he drives off. And we were laughing at the absurdities, is how he's on Mars. And there was a woman on the channel who's a watcher of the channel, and she says, like, I don't find this is funny. I don't think this is funny. I watch your stuff, but I don't think this one's funny. And I think that is so fair. That is so fair to write. That is so fair. And she did it in such a, we went back and forth. She's like, he's worth a lot of money. I said, I don't think he's worth as much as you think he is. And it was just a conversation. And that conversation made me going, intelligent people, conversation where people just having a back and forth and letting you know that if something bothered them, they feel comfortable enough that they could say that to you and you could have a conversation back. It didn't leave with anything. It was really a positive experience this weekend. So for everybody who puts comments out there, positive with criticism, positive criticism, any of those things, thank you so much. And thank you if you ever put something on this channel that you just I don't know, you were in a good mood, you wanted to put something in there, you felt like this show does something for you. If in general you just wanted to have a full-on conversation about film, thank you so much. I mean, really, it really changed my day the other day in thinking that way, and I hope that can help you guys also. I really do. I hope that if you're in a position where you're like you're mad at somebody said something to you, and again, not just the internet, someone in your family, something to. Just try to shift into the positivity of it. It's amazing how much it helps. And it's easier said than done. I understand this, but it really is kind of it can shift your entire reality. It really can. So if I can give you any advice, do that and wipe your ass after you shit. See, I'm not always going to stay serious. Well, that is pretty serious. So I guess that it's a serious thing to do. You want to wipe your ass. Marvel needs to wipe their ass. I'll tell you that, because they got to figure out what's going on with the Secret Invasion, and not Secret Invasion, silly ass. Secret Wars. I'm talking to myself. Over the weekend came a bunch of speculative online chatter about Avengers Secret Wars, the planned 6th Avengers film due for release in May 2027. After the proposed 5th film, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, in May 2026. Some of the talk centered on next year's Deadpool 3, setting up elements of it, but much of the chatter was focused on who might direct the film. As we previously knew, Michael Waldron, Loki, Doctor Strange, and the Multiverse of Madness, is writing the screenplay, but a director has not yet been locked. In fact, it's the only announced Marvel to date that hasn't set a helmet. As such, 3 names have now found themselves swirling around online, most interesting one being that Marvel allegedly wants Gravity and Children of Men helmer Alfonso Cuaron to direct, according to Daniel RPK. The other 2 rumored names are already familiar to Marvel, specifically Sam Raimi and Shawn Levy. Raimi most recently helmed Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Levy has been shooting Deadpool 3 for the company. None of the talk has seemed like anything other than speculation. Word did get back to one of them, though, with Shawn Levy asked about the reports. He said, "I read that rumor, and that's all I'm going to say." Both other upcoming works in the Phase 6 era of Marvel, Fantastic Four and Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, involves directors who worked on prior Marvel gigs, namely WandaVision's Max Shankman and Shang-Chi helmer destined Daniel Cretton. It's expected Marvel won't announce any potential helmet for some time to come. Yeah, well, they're not going to. Well, for what? They don't even know when they're going to be able to start shooting this thing. They don't know when they will do anything. So, of course, they're not going to announce it. Okay. So, there's 3 people who are now in the main rumor mill. Now, there have been other people like Ryan Coogler, and I think Ryan Coogler would be very interesting for sure. I'd love to see it if he wants to do it. Maybe he wants to take some time off. Maybe that's why his name's not even in the running. My ranking out of the 3 of these, from who I want to see it the least to the most, you guys are probably going to be able to guess this if you know me. 3, shouldn't even be in the talks. Sam Raimi. I have respect for Sam Raimi. He's one of the greats. People love him. His style is a specific thing. It is most people who loved it are Sam Raimi heads, and they love Sam Raimi. I always bring this up. I brought a friend of mine to see Doctor Strange 2 with me. Major Sam Raimi fan. Loved it. He's like, oh, that was great, right? And I was like, just never been a big Sam Raimi fan. I do think he's great. I think he's done some amazing stuff as far as what he's done for film, but I've never really responded to his movies. I haven't disliked his movies. Like, there's a lot of movies that I've seen of Sam Raimi. I'm like, those are good. They're fine. But they have, like, it's a Sam Raimi movie. It's not a Marvel movie, and I think they need a Marvel movie. It's not to say they don't just need a hired gun that's just going to shoot this, do it that way. They need someone who's got style. They need somebody. That's why I thought Ryan Coogler is always the best example. Ryan Coogler took his own style, did what he had to do, followed the Marvel game plan, and made a great movie in Black Panther. Ran into a lot of problems with Black Panther 2, and I think that the amount of time and what they had to do, I thought he did a spectacular job. So I thought he would have been great. Now, the other two are really interesting. Shawn Levy is my number 2. Now, I haven't seen Deadpool yet, so I know there's going to be a lot of comedy. I know he works really well with Ryan Reynolds. I know that they say that he works so well with Ryan Reynolds. We know that he does. We know that the chemistry that they have. And the question is, what is this? How is the new Deadpool movie going to play? We know it's going to have comedy. It's got to have comedy. We know that it's going to be a hard-rated R. He has said as much, right? We know already from all the rumors of all the different people that are going to be in this movie, it's going to be the biggest multiverse movie so far, and it probably does set up a lot of things that happen in Secret Wars, right? So that makes sense, and it would make sense that if that movie does play the way that we think it will, connecting the multiverse in the way that it could, Shawn Levy would be the guy to make this happen if he wants to do it. And if they're happy enough with the movie, but the question is, can he shift tone just a little bit? Because you don't want to see it have too much comedy in the Avengers movies, right? There's always a little bit, but you don't want to see it be, and look, Deadpool is a very specific tone. But Shawn Levy is not just, I mean, he's done a lot of movies with Ryan Reynolds that have been comedy focused, but he's also done, like, a movie that I love that people don't talk about that much is Real Steel. That's a great tone. That movie shouldn't have been as good as it is. And if you haven't seen Real Steel, what a fantastic movie that is. It really is a feel-good movie. I love that movie. Underrated movie. Shawn Levy does that film, and I think that that's the type of, like, balance that I'd want to see inside of an Avengers movie. You can be serious. You can take some, and the characters feel real. So yeah, I could see him doing it, but there's a no-brainer. If you can get Alfonso Cuaron to do an Avengers movie, you lock him up immediately. Get him immediately. To this day, I love all the Harry Potter movies. I like 1 and 2. Love the third one. The third one's my favorite. I love the third one. Now, that's an example of a director that can take what is important in the world and make it seem like a Harry Potter movie, yet still give it his own special flair, his own, like, Alfonso Cuarón did it. You know that this is directed by a master. And the way that he put together that story, I think they wanted him to do more, but he didn't want to come back. I can't remember the full story of it. You guys can tell me in the comments of why he didn't come back to Harry Potter. But I always wanted to see him do another one. I always wanted to see him do a Star Wars movie. I wanted to see him do that. But if you can get him to do a Marvel movie, he should be your first choice. He should be your first choice no matter what. If he is down, and as long as he doesn't want to change things dramatically, and he doesn't, well, I don't think that that's going to make sense. And in my head, Marvel should go like that. So if he starts doing that, then you can't do that, because it's like I don't know what their game plan is right now, but I'm sure Feige's got one. You've got to make sure that this thing that you've been doing with, okay, Taika, make your own movie. Okay, Raimi, make your own movie. All right, Chloe, make your own movie. You can't do that anymore. It didn't work for Star Wars, and it's not working for Marvel. It worked a lot better when you're like, okay, we know what we want to do. We want to get great directors to do our plan with including their style. Can you do that? And if Alfonso Cuarón says, yes, I can absolutely do that, you sign him up immediately. Sam Raimi's too far into the, well, I just did everything my way and I almost made $1 billion on it. That movie made $1 billion. It was the last movie to get close to $1 billion for Marvel. So that's probably one of the reasons why they're like, oh, well, people want to see Sam Raimi. We want to get him to, film this movie, and then that would be a really terrible choice. Maybe not for money, and maybe that's what it's all about, right? But as far as people don't talk about Doctor Strange 2 as one of the great Marvel movies. There are people who like it a lot, but when you talk about them, there's more people that go, I don't know, than anything else. So. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think out of those three? Do you think it should be one of those three? Do you think that, let's get somebody else entirely? I'm not liking anyone on this list. to me, Cuaron and Levy make the most sense. I would be okay with either one of those guys because depending on how much Deadpool really ties into it, into the new Avengers movie in general and the multiverse stuff, it could make sense to have the same way the Russos kind of set some things up with Winter Soldier, and then we're able to do Civil War and obviously Avengers. So if you took that kind of path with Shawn Levy, I think the guy's really good. I mean, I think he's really, really good. But Alfonso Cuaron is that's your choice. If you can get him, Feige should do everything in his power to get him to do it. I mean, please. That would be great. I don't know. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. So please go ahead. Leave your thoughts. Tell me who you want to see. And I'm excited to talk about it. I'm also very excited for you guys to hear a little bit more about NUTRAFOL. I know that I mentioned them a few weeks ago. And for those of you who don't know, they are really phenomenal. I'm so glad that that we got them as a sponsor. I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Here you go. Don't be embarrassed. Don't do it. Listen, did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, guys. But it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with NUTRAFOL. NUTRAFOL is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. NUTRAFOL's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to NUTRAFOL.com/men to take their hair wealth wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and NUTRAFOL will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. It works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking NUTRAFOL men's hair growth supplements. Everybody feels this way as you're getting older. You're like, oh man, am I the only one? Why is this happening to me? This and that. We're in an age now where you can get it helped. You can get it fixed. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, NUTRAFOL is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to NUTRAFOL.com/men, but you have to enter that promo code BIGTHING. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend NUTRAFOL for healthier hair. NUTRAFOL.com/men. NUTRAFOL.com/men and enter that code BIGTHING. That's NUTRAFOL.com/men, promo code BIGTHING. All right, once again, thank you to our friends over at NUTRAFOL. Link is in the description. Always pin the sponsors to the top. And I've been getting a lot of messages, as I mentioned, with the positivity and those things before. People have been saying, look, I hear you after your sponsors, and I hear you that like it helps out the show and your show is mental. I got a really nice message the other day of someone I listen to your show all the time, and I hear what you're saying about the sponsors, and I went out and I signed up for one this week because I want to help the show. And I said, well, I also hope that you're also doing because it's something that interests you and it's something that you want to try. So please, I will link in the description. Go and check that out. All right, before I move on, I will say this. Obviously today is September 11th, and one of the most horrific days in American history, the world history, to be honest. I always used to do a post. I had a buddy of mine, Brian Cachia, who was kind of like you find that one friend when you're younger, and it just kind of brings that creativity out of you. And I was kind of an awkward kid, so I found Brian Cachia. We went to the same school from 1st to 8th grade, but around we became buddies in 1st grade. But I think it was really around between the 3rd to 5th grade area that we started hanging out a lot. And his dad at the time he owned a video store, and he was the cool. This is before Blockbuster really kind of took off, So his dad owned a video store, so he had all these movies. He had laser discs. He had this basement in New York, and we would we would, whether it was Marvel or Superman or Star Wars or whatever it was, we always were pretending. And then he was the first guy to ever show me two things that I always remember. The two things that I always remember him showing me. The first was Terminator, 1984's Terminator, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And he showed me, and I couldn't believe this movie that he showed me. He's like, "You got to watch this." Because he watched everything. His dad had a video store, and he's like, "You got to watch this movie." We probably should have been watching the movie at the time, but we watched it, and I was blown away by that movie. And it's still to this day one of my favorites of all time. And I remember Brian showing me that one. But the other one that I credit him for is he introduced me to George Carlin, and George Carlin is my favorite comedian of all time. And George Carlin was the reason I became a stand-up comic, and the reason when I went to the Comedy Store, when I first got to Los Angeles, and I walked down, the Comedy Store was open. Nobody was in there. I don't know where the workers were, who knows. But I went into the original room, is like the main room there. There's the main room in the back, but the original room is like the one you see off Sunset Boulevard. And I walked in, and I stood on that stage, and I was just staring. And I was for quite a while. Nobody said anything. I don't think to this day. No one saw me in there, and I just walked out afterwards. I was in there for a while. I stood on that stage, and I just looked at it, and I said, George Carlin stood here. Robin Williams stood here. Richard Pryor. All these people. And I'm looking out and just going, I'm going to be a regular here. And I kind of put that in my head, and I was able to do it. And I don't know I watched a lot of stand-up comedy with my dad. There's no doubt about it. But there was something about that day when Brian showed me George Carlin that just changed. I felt like whenever, like I said, it was awkward when I was a kid. And there were things that I didn't do very well when I was like, I didn't fit in with a lot of people at the school. There was like a kind of just a small group that I did. And I never, when you're a kid, you cannot feel, even if you're not necessarily in any like peril or anything, but you cannot feel safe. You know what I mean? Like if you feel awkward, you feel like you're trying to belong. And I never felt that way with Brian. Brian always brought that out of me of the stuff that I'm able to do now. And I remember when I was working for the WWE, Brian had sent me an email. He had just started his new job at Cantor Fitzgerald. And he had been there for like a month before the attacks. Trying not to choke up. I won't. And I remember thinking to myself, I was in Connecticut at the time. I was thinking, it was before I left. And I was like, I would like to see him again. It's before Facebook and MySpace and all that stuff. MySpace was like 5 years later or whatever it was. And there wasn't a lot of connectivity for people. I remember finding all these people I went to school with from first to eighth grade, like years later on. We all reconnected and saw each other at like bars and stuff too. And I always remember thinking to myself, I know Brian would have been here. I saw him at a bar too before the events happened. But it was like the last kind of interaction I had with him. The crazy part about all of that too is that, and I think I've told this story before, but I share this story with all the people that have either lost people and that day in general, whether you did or not, it was just a terrible day, emotionally for all of us. And I was working at CPK at the time, and I was walking because what happened was I worked at WWE, left, went back and started working at CPK. And I was there, and I was walking out, and my dad called me, and I got the message. He told me, and my dad was crying and told me about Brian. And what happened was Brian was engaged, and his fiance found my number. I guess they were inviting me to the wedding, and she had my contact, and let my dad know. So I obviously couldn't drive home after that, and I sat back, and I'll never forget this. I was sitting in there's like this back area of the Santa Monica CPK, and I'm in the back there, and I was, my friends were consoling me because it hit me like a brick. And I've never gone through like a range of emotion like this. I was obviously in this set of like just really being upset and mourning, and there was this, and at the corner of my eye, I see this guy, and he's pointing at me. He's laughing at me. And this rage started to come at me. But then I realized very quickly he had special needs. And he wasn't mocking me. He was kind of focusing in, and it was this kind of warmth, like this person needs to be consoled. And I felt like this calm after that. It was bizarre. And clear as day, I knew exactly what was going on. And then, it was just, that was my experience. And I only share that today because I know that a lot of people, again, whether you went through a personal thing whether you knew somebody or not, it was, and whether you were, if you were too young, it's impossible to not see these things and like as it's always celebrated. Well, celebrate is not the right word, but it's always that they're remembering and never forget. To not feel an emotional moment when you're watching all the lives that were lost and the emotions that came from so many different places. So I want to make sure, like I said, I usually always post about it on the day, but today I wanted to talk about it a little bit. And so yeah. Anyway, speaking of stand-up comedy, I posted on the community page that I was supposed to do a set tonight. I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm going to. I saw that a guy and his wife were planning on coming out to check it out, and I want to make sure that people don't. Yeah, I mean, go to the show. Kate Mulligan will be there, Jake will be there, but I'm not going to be there, so I want to make sure that people know that. All right, let's shift over a little bit. Let's go to. Speaking of, yesterday came comments from filmmaker Shawn Levy about the upcoming Deadpool 3, where he revealed the project was halfway through filming before it shut down due to the strikes. He also discussed the tone of the film and its aims to film practically where possible, along with retaining the R-rated style of the first two films. Now, Levy has also talked more about the Marvel films while out at the Toronto Film Festival promoting his new Netflix series based on the novel All the Light We Cannot See. Speaking with EW, he says getting Hugh Jackman into the comic-accurate Wolverine suit was a big goal with the new film. He says, like the rest of the world, I've waited 2 decades to see Wolverine in a whole movie with Deadpool, and I don't know if this is our last shot at Wolverine on screen, so I was going to make it goddamn sure we get the old yellow and blue just once, and we got it right. He added they went through multiple iterations and fittings to make the suit correct, helping Levy having access to an army of the nerdiest nerds available to a Marvel project. He also says that the reaction is exactly what they wanted. Fortunately, it seems global reaction to those costumes has been overwhelmingly positive, so all's well that ends well. Levy also touched upon all those wild casting rumors that have flown around, from the more confirmed ones like Jennifer Garner regarding as Elektra to the more wildly speculative ones like Taron Egerton appearing as a variant of Wolverine. Levy says, I'd rather not weigh in on that, but I'll say this. The rumors of actors, singers, sports stars who are all apparently in Deadpool 3 are fabulous. If all I read was the internet, all I would have is the greatest cast ever assembled in the history of cinema. So I'll simply say that some of those rumors are true and some of them aren't. Deadpool 3 is currently slated for May 3rd, 2024, but with the halt, it is possible that a delay will happen. All right, so this kind of furthers. I really like Shawn Levy a lot. I like the way he handles himself. I like the way that he is excited about things. I loved his enthusiasm with the costume. Enthusiasm. I loved his enthusiasm with the costume, about the fact that he's worked so well with Hugh Jackman before. As I mentioned, Real Steel, he obviously works really well with Ryan Reynolds. I think their chemistry, they're obviously buddies. It's gonna be a really good movie. I think that the fact that he can say, look, a lot of the rumors are true. You figure out which ones they are. And there's going to be a lot of the multiverse is going to be a major thing as we know this. And I think one of the main movies that is actually going to piece all this stuff together, there's going to be a lot of wild rumors that I don't think are true at all. I don't know how true that Taron Egerton one is at all. And I think it kind of makes a joke out of it if they do it, where unless they're going to actually introduce him as the MCU Wolverine, I don't want to see another kind of or John Krasinski moment where it's like, everybody they wanted him to be Mr. Fantastic, so here he is in the multiverse as Mr. Fantastic, but you're not going to get him down the line. It's like, hey, that was funny. It was good the first time. Let's not keep doing that. But the other stuff about people coming in, and I think we're going to see a lot of those people, a lot of those rumors in general. And of course, he can't give you any confirmation of it, because why would he? Also, even if he could, why would he? That's you want to be surprised. I think that's one of the fun things about it. I mean, there is something like that's, and I get it when it comes to all of us talking about these stories and everybody trying to get the scoops of who's going to be casting in the internet age. And it's tough, because even Mike Kalinowski the other day was talking about how, he was pissed off because he got spoiled from something that happened in Ahsoka the other day, and he went on the internet and he saw it. I was like, well, stay off the internet during that time. It's harder to do from now until whenever this movie comes out, and like I've seen so many things of like, this person's reported to be in it. This person, I kind of like the fact that there's so many different reports now. Like as Levy says, that there's some that's just BS, and so that way, if someone does show up, I'm like, oh, I remember when that rumor came out. I guess that was true, and then well, that person never showed up. I guess that was horse crap. So I like being surprised during those moments, but the question of, as they mentioned at the end of the Dark Horizons report, is will this movie hit the targeted date? And the longer the strike goes on, the more doubtful it becomes, right? Because Deadpool was going through and pushing through, and until while the writer's strike was going on, there was that whole thing where they just made sure that you couldn't write anything new, nothing could be improvised. So it was business as usual, but you got to follow the script, and now you can't do any of that. So if they don't figure it out soon, the strike rather, that movie will be one of the ones that gets pushed. There's tons of stuff that's going to get pushed. But what's not getting pushed? Aquaman 2. Aquaman 2, everybody was talking about how they were kind of burying the movie and this wasn't happen and should it be pushed? And I think it makes sense that they're putting it out. They're releasing a trailer on Thursday. Yes, we'll be doing a trailer reaction to that, but they are releasing a trailer, and my goodness, this is the right move. It's the right move. There's four reshoots in general that have taken place so far for this. Usually there's like 1 or 2, 4 rounds of reshoots. The movie is going to be, if it comes out it's been pushed already so many different times. If it doesn't come out now and if they push it until March or summer, you're getting too close to that Superman release date. Make the last of the DCEU, the last of the Snyder characters, put it out there, cut your losses. I don't think it's going to make, the first one made $1 billion. I hope I'm wrong. I think they need a win, and I'm hoping for DC to get a win, but I just don't think people care anymore about these characters. And now, and in general, comic book movies are not in the same place that they were, or superhero movies rather. They're not in the same place that they were when the first one came out in 2018, I think? 2018, 2019. So you have to put it out. And Zazlav needs some money in the account, whether you're going to have Jason Momoa putting promotion into this thing or not. You're going to have at least, because people are, why don't you just take the tax break? You got, this movie is going to cost them anywhere with marketing and all that, probably anywhere between $275 to $400 million in general, right? So they need to put, even if this movie makes 200 and they lose 250 million dollars on it, at least it's not 400 million that they're losing. Got to put some money back in that bank account. And maybe, because there's nothing else really coming out, and people like Jason Momoa, maybe it hits. And maybe they're like, whoa, look at that. For everybody who was doubting Aquaman 2, James Wan said, F you. We did it. We made a profit. We made some money. We made it back. $1 billion. We're not in that time period anymore. Barbie just crossed 1.4. Mario did it. The hype around superhero movies are just not there to get to $1 billion. Again, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope we're talking about how much it was able to do, because I like Momoa. I root for Momoa, and I'm rooting for. I think DC needs a win. So very curious what you guys think. What do you think about that movie? You think it's going to make $1 billion? Are you excited for the trailer? What's your hype in general for that movie? Go ahead and tell me in the comments. All right, next one. All right, speaking of Warner Brothers and Zoloft. Now, this is, again, Garth Franklin over at Dark Horizons. Think the Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings franchises overextended themselves with those prequel spin-off films? You ain't seen nothing yet. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO Zazlav Zoloft has once again expressed the desire to double down on his company's biggest franchise, which he sees as being underutilized, specifically those 2 franchises and DC. Appearing at the Goldman Sachs and technology conference recently via the Wrap, he says one of his company's real strengths is the great IP that Warner Brothers owns, but the challenge is the content has been underused. That's where things get confusing. He says the company hasn't done long-form Superman in over 10 years, and then added, we haven't done anything with Harry Potter for more than a decade. We haven't done anything with Lord of the Rings. The last Hobbit film was 9 years ago, though Warner's has both an animated Rings feature film coming shortly and more live-action films planned. Warner's aren't involved in Amazon's mega-budget Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power series. Man of Steel was a decade ago, but Henry Cavill's Superman returned multiple times since, and Superman and Lois is still running on TV. James Gunn will soon relaunch Superman with a solo screen outing in Superman Legacy. There hasn't been a new screen work set in the Harry Potter timeline of the original novel since the Potter films ended over a decade ago. Warner's own Fantastic Beasts prequel frequency was cut short when its third film last year, and Hogwarts Legacy has dominated the game sphere for a good part of the year. More recently, an HBO series based on the books was announced earlier this year. Zazlav adds, "We've got to be careful not to overuse the content. We need to deploy our best capital, and we need to do it with the best creative people in the world." Okay, here's the thing. Everything he's saying, I agree with all of it. I don't know how much I trust him as far as I can throw him across the street. I think he's about as the guy comes off pretty slimy these days. But it all makes sense. If you're running that shop and you're like, okay, guys, we can't just rely on James Gunn and that's all everyone's talking about. It's Gunn and Safran and Superman coming out and our DC movies aren't hitting the ones that we used to have. We're hoping that the Gunn one is going to, but our other big IPs, what are we doing with it? Yeah, they have a TV show with Harry Potter. They announced that, but no more movies, right? If you are, there's always that question of, if you have the IP and you can find the right creative talent around it, as he said, you've got an opportunity to really explore it and not exploit it, which you can do that many studios have been guilty of many different times with many different projects and properties. And the question is, if he can find the right people to do it. Like, let's say you were able to get Cuaron, as we were just talking about before, and he decides that what they're going to do is they look at the success of Hogwarts Legacy, and they're going to make movies based off of that. And they're going to adapt. They're going to do basically what Last of Us did, and they're going to adapt this very popular game, and they're going to make it a movie. Because as many gamers as there are a a lot of people who don't know what the story is, and it captures the magic way more, pun intended, way more than the Fantastic Beast does. My daughter was playing, and I walked in, I just watched a little of it, and it felt like I was transported. I was watching a little bit of this game while she was playing it on PlayStation. And I felt more in those moments. Let's say hypothetically I was watching it for 10 or 15 minutes. I felt more like I was in that world than I did for 3 movies in Fantastic Beasts. And J.K. Rowling was involved in those. I think the difference was always, I think when it just comes to straight up screenplays, when you're writing it for those particular stories, when there's actual material that allows you to dive deep into that world the way that the original movies did inside of those novels, and then a story as thick as this Hogwarts Legacy, you have an opportunity to do it. Lord of the Rings is trickier. Now, the first part with Lord of the Rings, people are going to, because like we said with Harry Potter, there's source material now and still new stuff coming out and new stories that can be told. And Lord of the Rings is a very, very tough one to do. First of all, I think it would behoove them to get Peter Jackson, although I know a lot of people don't love the Hobbit movies. I don't really either. I think the Smaug is not bad, but it was over CGI'd. It had the same kind of feel like where the original trilogy in Star Wars had, and then you got really carried away, I should say, with all the different effects and things that you could do in CGI and computers, and in the same way, and a Hobbit had that same problem. Now, I do think that a lot of people, regardless if Warner Brothers is associated with the Amazon series or not, people don't pay attention to that, and they're just going to go, "Oh, that new series was crap," and it's going to be the same thing for the movie if they're the same people doing it, and they're not. But it's also that's a tougher one to direct screenplays from. Like, what's the story? Are there stories that they're going to actually adopt from Tolkien? Are there things that they're going to? Is it going to be brand new stuff? Is it going to be a different series? I mean, that's tougher. I'm sure that Peter Jackson has some kind of ideas, but those are trickier to do. Those are going to be trickier to pull up. I think Harry Potter's easier. I understand them trying to explore it, but yeah, that's gonna be an undertaking. There's no doubt about it. That's a tougher one to do, because if you keep messing that up, people are gonna go, all right, cut it out. This doesn't make. You can clearly, from Hogwarts Legacy, you can make something feel, because when you watch Fantastic Beasts, like, I don't know, this doesn't feel the same way, the same kind of feel that I had for Harry Potter. But then when you play that game, you're like, oh, they know they can recapture this. It's the same way that when you look at like Knights of the Republic, which I think is lunacy that they're not doing anything in that world. The idea that George Lucas doesn't think that it's or didn't would never do something like Knights of the Republic is lunacy. It's Sith fighting Jedi, all that. Don't get me started. Anyway, this is absolutely a no-brainer with Harry Potter, and if you can, or just say Hogwarts or that world, and if you can get Radcliffe and all them back, sure, you'll break the bank when you bring them back if you can get them. Lord of the Rings are trickier, but what do you guys think? Do you think that it could work? Not work? Go ahead and tell me. I want to know. I also want to know if you've tried Green Chef. I've told you guys about Green Chef. I've completely, like, that's the one I saw someone sign up recently for too, and they sent me this. Their wife was had just had a surgery, so a guy was like, I'm going to start cooking some meals for my wife, and he had heard me talk about Green Chef, and he used the code, the 60% off of Green Chef, and I love Green Chef, man. I love them so much, and it's healthy. It is great. I just the other day I just made some burgers for the family with some of the meat that they sent over, and I found a right way to cook these things. I absolutely love them. They're easy to do. They fit your lifestyle, all that. But I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Here you go. You guys know Green Chef. I've been talking about Green Chef forever. I love them. I've been so excited to continue to work with them because I've been eating really good, as I mentioned before, not only with other vitamins and stuff I'm taking, but I'm eating really well. And the reason why I'm eating so well is because Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating clean with dinners that work for you, and it's not the other way around. You can eat clean the easy way with recipes that help manage your weight and support your wellness goals without skimping on flavor. I talk about it all the time. I do my own. I make like quesadillas now, and I can throw stuff on the grill. They have really good meat, good burgers, and they have everything that you can actually eat. If you don't like burgers, you want to eat vegan more, they can do that too. You can enjoy effortless plant-based dining with Vegan Kickoff, which is a brand new limited time options, including delicious vegan breakfast, lunches, dinners, and sides. They have everything. They deliver everything you need to eat clean the easy way for the rest of the summer. You can feel your best with nutritionists approved recipes packed with clean ingredients that support your healthy lifestyle, and they taste great too. So if you want to check it out, please go and do it because they're really amazing. You get ahead of the busy season with their convenient step-by-step recipes. They have dinners that are ready in like 25 minutes or less. I'm telling you, it was so easy for me, and I'm an imbecile when it comes to cooking. And it was so great. I mean, I love them. If you go to greenchef.com/60thing, greenchef.com/60thing, and use that code 60thing, you'll get 60% off plus free shipping. It is worth the shot. Go and give it a whirl, as the world girls would say. It is so good. I love it, and you'll love it too. All right, please use that code. Please use that code, and please get yourself some of those. And like I said, you're going to thank me for it. Everybody who's signed up for Green Chef has thanked me for it. But you also will help out this show. I have talked about it. If you saw Theo Vaughn's video recently, we went through some of the similar stuff that he did too, and we're trying to catch up. So one of the things that always helps out, if you're able to support the show and it fits your means and you're able to do it, please go ahead and sign up to one of our wonderful sponsors today. The link is in the description, always pinned to the top. Hope you enjoy it. All right, moving on to the next topic. Well, let's talk about this one because this is pretty interesting to me. When Lucasfilm announced all their movies and everything they were doing, or when Disney bought Lucasfilm, there was rumors of a lot of spin-off films, right? It was like Han Solo was getting his own movie, Yoda at one point, and then Boba Fett was the other one that people were talking about. And Josh Trank has talked about it. That was absolutely the movie he was going to do. I had heard years ago, and so I can't find the interview, but so Simon Kinberg, what people don't realize is Simon Kinberg was involved with Rebels, Star Wars Rebels. People forget that. I interviewed Simon Kinberg and Dave Filoni at Comic-Con, and I had heard birds flying around, and they landed in my ear, and they told me that Simon Kinberg was working on a Boba Fett movie because he was a big fan of like the tales of the bounty hunter. And he looked at me like, who do you know because he didn't say yes or no, but I saw his eyes, and he's like, who do you know? Because clearly it's true from this report we're going to talk about here. But I don't know anybody. I just hear birds. They tell me things. This is like 2014. I hear birds. They fly around and they say, Simon Kinberg likes Boba Fett. And he did. He did like Boba Fett. And so here's the report. Simon Kinberg has made a career out of his involvement in science fiction and other genre franchises, including writing and producing a number of the X-Men films, along with the scripts for films as Sherlock Holmes, Jumper, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Recently, he created, wrote, and executive produced the Apple TV Plus sci-fi series Invasion, which recently launched its second season. As part of the promotion of that, he spoke with the Polygon in a long-ranging interview covering his influences. He was also asked about his role in the Star Wars franchise. He says around a decade ago, he, Lawrence Kasdan, and Michael Arndt spent a couple of weeks at Skywalker Ranch in kind of a mini writer's room where they would break ideas and stories and brainstorm. Then each was to go off and write their own film. Arndt wrote, and later Kasdan rewrote Star Wars The Force Awakens. Kasdan wrote what would become Solo: A Star Wars Story, and Kinberg went off to write the Boba Fett movie that was ultimately scrapped before it went into production. That would have focused on Boba Fett during the original trilogy and had Josh Trank briefly attached to helm before he exited over creative differences with Kinberg. Asked about the discussion that his pitch was more hard sci-fi than the usual sci-fi fantasy, he says, I mean, it's all pretty sci-fi, but I think hard is the right word. Tonally like Logan, on the edge of R-rated, though I don't think you can have a Star Wars movie that could be R-rated. He adds over time his role with Star Wars franchise changed to being consultant on the movies, give thoughts, notes, sometimes actual pages for scripts, and obviously co-creating Star Wars Rebels and really staying with that show that he loved. Okay, so Kinberg's had a kind of a rough go the last few years, and I remember that when Kinberg, around that time I was mentioning, and obviously the time period that we're talking about with this story, he was kind of like the guy. People were bringing him in to do everything because he was there's always that guy that like, oh, well, get Kinberg. That was a hit. Do that. And I think, was he involved in the X-Men Days of Future Past? Maybe that was one of the ones. But then he got involved with a few of them, and he directed Dark Phoenix, which was a real fart piece. So everyone kind of went after him on that, or just his clout went down. This is a very fickle town. You can, if you do one new thing and it's great, people love you again. But right now, most people are going to go in the comment section, well, good, because it would have been terrible anyway. Kinberg ruins everything he touches. I see that all the time when you see his name, and I don't think that's fair. I think he's got a lot of wins under his belt too, and he's got a lot of them that don't work. But the actual idea that they were going to do, that they could have done this, and they would have gone a little bit more. I mean, because Rogue One, I think, had the most serious tone out of all of them, for sure. And if they did something along those lines and they made Boba Fett more of a, like, I still don't understand when people push back. We did this short that did really well. We talked about Boba Fett and the TV show, and I just don't understand how people push back on it. It's like, you see the way that show was pitched, and it was pitched as if it was this Tony Soprano, Goodfellas, Godfather type of thing, and the end of that, the way that he is in The Mandalorian season 2, is the Boba Fett you always thought you were going to get, right? And then by the end of it, walks in, doesn't let Bib Fortuna say anything, blows him away. Doesn't say, I'm Boba Fett. I was going to kill you, but now I'm a good guy, so I'm not going to kill you. So what should we, Fennec's going to kill you, because I don't do that anymore. All this stuff that happened already with the Tuskens and all that stuff that happened. So when he goes back and he helped, like he crawled out of the Sarlacc pit, he gets taken by the Tuskens, and he's supposed to have this major shift. And people are like, well, that's why he's not killer anymore, because he went through this whole thing. Yeah, but then why does all that stuff happen in Mandalorian? And why does he decide to just murder, Bib Fortuna, and then he's a totally different character in the series? And the answer to that question is because they didn't. This is where probably you could potentially get a Disney note combined with the Kathleen Kennedy note. Maybe. I don't know. But what I would say is that it is likely that they're like, well, it can't just be a Star Wars show. I know you want to go that kind of Breaking Bad thing too, but for Star Wars, it doesn't really work, and you can't have the bad guy. Can't he be like a little good, and like he turns around and like he sees the error of his ways, and you can see that conversation happening in a movie with Boba Fett. And also the other thing is, well, and which is not wrong. They're like, he's pretty similar to Din. When you look at how the Mandalorian is in those first 2 seasons, like he's pretty ruthless. And the butcher scene, like that's the Boba Fett you thought you were going to get. So that, I think that's the best way to put this too. If you look at that scene in that tone that Bryce Dallas Howard does in the butcher scene in, well, it's not, it's in Boba Fett. It's not in Mandalorian. It's in Boba Fett. It's the Mandalorian episode. The first time you see him, I think it's episode 6. I think maybe 5 or 6, whichever one it is. And that's what I think that tone of the movie he's describing, or what we hope we would have seen. But I'm glad it never happened, to be honest with you. If we were going to do, well, if you're going to compare, that's one. People always say, now, if you go back in time, wouldn't you rather have an Obi-Wan movie rather than a show? No, I still would want an Obi-Wan show. I would just want better writing. Now, if someone said to me, wouldn't you rather have had this movie than the show for Boba Fett? Yes. I think a movie for Boba Fett, this tone that Kinberg was talking about, has a better shot, if they were actually going to stick to it, than what they did with the series. But maybe they can change that in season 2. Maybe they make him a little bit more ruthless. I don't know. What do you guys think? Crazy talk? Does this work? Not work? Do you think that this could have worked as a movie? Did you like the Boba Fett series? Am I wrong? Go ahead, comment. Tell me what you think. All right, let's end with this. The box office is in, and The Nun 2. Regardless of what people think of it, man, this is the type of stuff that I'm talking about with box office, with budgets. This movie costs like, I don't know, $35 to make. I think it was like anywhere between $35 to $40 million, something like that, which is a more expensive entry in the franchise. But compared to Indiana Jones, $300 million, this movie already is starting to turn a profit because it didn't cost anything to make, really. The Nun 2 has scared up a storm at the global box office this weekend. The Conjuring spin-off sequel pulled in $85.3 globally, $32.6 million domestically, $52.7 overseas. The overseas start is the second biggest opening for the Conjuring universe, behind only the first Nun film and considerably above many other horror launches this year. Other big winners this weekend was Shah Rukh Khan's new action thriller film Shawn, which pulled in $57 million worldwide for the 3-day and $64 million in the 4 days since its debut, highest 4-day global ever for a Hindi movie. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is set to pass the $900 million worldwide mark. Wow. And stands at $891 million as end of this Sunday. The film is still going strong in China, where its second weekend added $9.6 million from that market alone. Equalizer 3 topped the $100 million worldwide mark in its second weekend, taking in $107 million, while domestically it pulled in $12.1. Second place, Barbie, meanwhile, hit $620 million domestically and $1.4 billion worldwide. It's expected to pass Age of Ultron this week. Still in play are Gran Turismo, based on a true story, which has so far managed $93.3 million worldwide. So is Blue Beetle, which is up to $114 million worldwide. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is at $161 million worldwide, and Meg 2: The Trench, which has hit pretty astonishing $384 million worldwide. That is pretty crazy. As far as Blue Beetle goes, look, it's nice to see that this is kind of goes back to my point with Aquaman, right? Now, the movie was originally intended for an HBO Max or whatever release. It gets pushed out as $125 million to make. With marketing, let's say it's $225. It's not gonna. It'll maybe break even, maybe, or lose a little bit of money. But if they would have just put it on Max, or if they would have not put it out at all, at least they get to put some of that money back in the bank account. So you can take it as a win in that particular area, right? Plus the fact that it got pretty good reviews from the audience. It got pretty good reviews from people who saw it. Everybody agrees that Xolo Maridueña is a star, and he's going to be in more stuff. So that is a win. Barbie is just the win of the win of the year. Look, Oppenheimer. Who in the world thought that was going to make $1 billion or close to $1 billion? I mean, everybody's it's Nolan, so it got an opportunity to do well. But $900 million, I would have never guessed that in a million years. I think on a show recently, I said something. Maybe it'll hit 600. People said you're a lunatic. It's going to get close to $1 billion, and they were right. Wow. So that movie, absolutely crushing it overall this year. And it's nice to see, to be honest, that movies like Barbie and Mario and Oppenheimer are the leaders this year. I think it's time for a little bit of a shift, and it's good that there's a little bit of a shift. Now, will Aquaman hit that? I don't know. We'll see. But to continue on, these movies, The Nun 2. Look, I did an out of the theater reaction. And it's funny. A lot of times when I do an out of the theater reaction, I can tell from. I'm blessed in the fact that my out of the theater reactions they get pushed out to people in the way that the algorithm. Like if I put a reaction out, like something like One Piece, the algorithm has not picked up yet that I'm doing this a lot because they haven't done it a lot. And it doesn't push it out to my subscribers in the same way that when I put an out of the theater reaction out, it does. And the way that I look at things when it comes to an out of the theater reaction is not necessarily whether or not people give a shit what I'm saying about it or not. It's whether or not how it does. Like if I do something like interest, right? I always think that, okay, maybe that movie's going to do pretty well if the reactions did pretty well. Barbie did pretty good. Oppenheimer did pretty good. I mean, hell, Black Adam did pretty good. Now, Black Adam, here's the difference. People are like, well, then your theory's over. Black Adam made like $500 million or $400 million, whatever it was. If that movie costs a lot less, that's a major hit. But the fact that it cost almost $300 million was a dopey move. These movies, like you look at it again, like The Nun Part 2, which, I mean, I know that when you're dealing with a star like The Rock and you're dealing with a big, like even Blue Beetle was $120 million, right? But it just goes to show the kind of the conversation that we're having over and over again. But the out of the theater reaction I did for The Nun Part 2 did okay. I don't even know if it hit 10,000. However, the same argument is that, yeah, the movie it didn't even make $100 million yet. But the reason why it made such a profit, or is going to make a profit, is because of the low budget that it made. But I guess the one that definitely does not prove my theory correct when it comes to the theater reactions, is 65, that Adam Driver movie. I couldn't believe how well that out of the theater reaction did. I think like 50 or 50. I don't remember, something anywhere from 50 up. And I thought that movie that would have done the same as The Nun 2, and I thought Nun 2 would have done better. But who the hell knows? All I do know is that The Nun 2 made 32 domestically. The Equalizer 3, which I'm so bummed I missed that damn screening. I want to see that movie so badly. Now, that actually brings me into my next point. So I learned something this weekend, guys. As I was doing those One Piece reactions, and for everybody who joined me on those, thank you. The other thing that I asked was on a poll on the community page, I said, listen, if I was going to do, because I had said, and I think it was on Friday's show, I have never seen one Saw. Like someone asked me on the Q&A episode if I'm going to see Saw X. I said, I've never seen one of them, and I might see it. And someone's like, you got to see the first one, you're going to be lost. So I was like, well, what if I do one of those videos, like the first time watching videos, and I'll do Saw. And then I was like, and then I reached out to Winston. I miss Winston. Winston's like a really good friend of mine now. I mean, everybody who's on my show is a buddy, but Winston's like a really good buddy of mine, and I miss seeing Winston. I was like, hey, listen, I know that for the strikes and everything, you're choosing not to talk about movie stories and everything too, but can you do like watch-alongs and first time watching? He's like, yeah, I can. I was like, all right, well, why don't we try to do something? So we started talking about like doing Rocky, because he's never seen Rocky. So that could be interesting. So if you guys want those types of movies, and you want to see those types of videos, obviously support them when we put them out. But the reason I bring that up is I have not seen The Equalizer 3. So maybe when The Equalizer 3 comes out on digital, then I'll watch it and do first time watching. Because now certain things that I miss, I can do first time watching. So let me know if you like that plan and what you think. But what do you think about this as far as box office goes? What's going to be, do you think that Aquaman's going to hit $1 billion? I got to know. And what do you think Barbie, no one's overthrowing Barbie, obviously, this year. Nothing else will hit $1 billion this year, right? Nothing. What can hit $1 billion? Nothing. I can't imagine. I mean, shit, what can hit anything? Can anything hit 500 or 600? What do you think? And who knows if they're going to start pushing things back? Clearly, Aquaman's not. But any of the topics that we talked about here today, please chime in. I really want to get your thoughts. If you haven't seen my reactions for One Piece and you're watching the show, please check it out. I have episodes 1 and 2. I'm going to do the whole series. I'm going to try it out and see what you guys think. And And then I'm going to probably do I'm going to do the first Saw. And then I'll probably start to do some first time watching videos. And if you guys are digging them, and I think it'll be another way. We used to do the rewatch series, but not without any other footage or anything too. But now that we're kind of starting and trying to do it this way, maybe it's a brand new kind of thing that we can do on the show. I don't know. If you haven't joined the website, you haven't checked the Patreon out, please consider one of those two. Again, if you want to help us and want to be able to support the channel and you're able to do it, please do it. But if not, if you're able to and you have the means to do it, please check out one of our wonderful sponsors today. Thanks for joining us on the show. Make sure you go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. Leave us a review, rate it, all that stuff and more. And obviously hit that button. We're getting close to 100,000. We hope you'll join us. For me, I'm you, and we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks, everybody. Bye.